I do think that guns save a lot more lives than guns take. But that's not the basis of my argument. The basis of my argument is that each individual has the right to take their life into their own hands. We are all our own last lines of defense.
But at the end of the day, you're called to protect and defend the innocent. And also, you have the moral right to defend the self. Well, why do you argue that the wrong way in another paper that you have to think about gun control is weighing outcomes in a utilitarian kind of a cost-benefit analysis, statistics? And why do you think that weighing outcomes in that way is wrong? And what is the right way to think about gun control?
Well, the short answer is that utilitarianism is wrong. The longer answer is that utilitarianism focuses chiefly on just weighing the costs and benefits, and it doesn't take into account rights. And if you read the literature on moral rights are regarded as what are sometimes called, and this is borrowing a term from the legal philosopher Ronald Dworkin, they're called trump cards. A right is supposed to defeat appeals to negative utility. So, for example, you may not harvest my organs, even if it means saving 10 people. Saving 10 people might be a beneficial outcome. It might outweigh that one life, but my right not to be killed, my right to keep my organs, doesn't allow you to do that. And so what utilitarianism doesn't take into account, and many people, and it's easy to sort of slip into utilitarian thinking. It's intuitive in the sense that you look at policy proposals, think tanks, politicians. They'll often appeal to numbers, studies, and all that kind of stuff. Nothing wrong with that, but we have to remember numbers aren't the only game in town. And sometimes appealing to numbers can obscure, important rights that aren't being discussed. And so I think, the right to life and rights that are derived from that are absolute and weighty in a way that cannot be defeated by appeals to negative consequences. And so, you read the literature on gun control, it's often framed in terms of, do guns help more or do guns harm more? Do guns save more lives or do guns take more lives? That's, you read John Locke, more guns, less crime. You read the other side, David Hemingway, for example. It's all about, what are the numbers, what do they stack up? And I do think that as far as the numbers game go, I do think that guns, and there's a lot of data on this, and I talk about it in some of my papers, I do think that guns save a lot more lives than guns take. But that's not the basis of my argument. The basis of my argument is that each individual has the right to take their life into their own hands. We are all our own last lines of defense. And so, look, even if restricting guns, banning guns for everyone, even if that would save X number of lives, we still have the moral right, and arguably in some cases the obligation, to defend ourselves using the most effective means possible. Sure, it might overall reduce the number of homicides, suicides, accidents, and so on, but the basis for owning a gun isn't the overall security it provides to society. It's the fact that each individual has the right to provide for their own defense. Moreover, as I mentioned in one of my papers, you can care about the numbers and you can care about rights in a way that, so for example, instead of banning guns for everyone, you might say that, well, okay, certain people are unqualified, and they're not the kind of people we want to own guns, and you can restrict those people from owning guns while allowing the vast majority of people who are law-abiding the ability to own guns. So I don't have a problem, for example, with banning former criminals or felons from owning firearms. But what the law can't do is it can't assume that everyone is unqualified and require them to prove they're qualified. We don't treat self-defense that way. We don't say, no, you can't call the police until you show that you're qualified to
Right.
or sorry, we don't tell people, no, you have to call the police until you're able to show to us that you're able to defend yourself on your own terms. We let people take their own lives into their own hands because that's a prerogative that we all have as individuals. And so, look, I think the consequences, the numbers are important, but they're not the only game in town. And certainly we should take them into account, but they're not decisive. And I make this case in several of my papers and several of my op-eds. It's a long argument I give that I'm not going to go into detail here.